Los Angeles burns again. China is not our friend. The biggest political scandal in 50 years. This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America with my own take on key stories from this past week focused on politics and business. So the Democrats continue to self-destruct, and as usual, the GOP is failing to take full advantage of this opportunity. Los Angeles burns again. You would think that after the massive black eye LA got for its major fires recently, the city and state would do everything in its power to return trust in the country's second largest city. Well, nope. Pretty boy Newsom and perhaps the worst mayor in the history of America, Karen Bass, doubled down on stupid. Newsom already was kicked in the face for going to court to try and stop the National Guard from protecting the city of Los Angeles. He lost on that, of course. Unless you're living under a rock, you know the basics. ICE arrested 40 of some of the worst illegals in America in the city of Los Angeles. This included a double murderer and other serious criminals, according to reports. In turn, coordinated gangs attacked the ICE agents and tried to attack federal buildings. The local police were overwhelmed. Trump has sent in the National Guard and now more federal forces. The key aspect is to protect federal buildings. Amazingly, Democrat politicians have opposed both ICE raid of serious criminals and efforts to stop the violent rioting. The American disgraced Maxine Waters even tried to claim that there was no violence. She has turned herself into a caricature of a public figure. Her irrelevancy, Hillary Who, chimed in on this silly claim as well. The damage is extraordinary. Many cars were damaged, including 5 Waymo self-driving cars. The photo ops will help to confirm the decision of over 80% of Americans that illegal immigration has been a costly and damaging endeavor by the Biden-Harris administration. Seeing the protesters burn things, hurt law enforcement officers, and wave Mexican flags is not going to do anything but drive more Americans to the Trump agenda. Remember, some of the activists are associated with communist movements. We've all seen what a success communism is, right? I do not understand why law enforcement members who were in their cars when deadly concrete blocks were thrown through their windshields, that they did not use deadly force to protect themselves. Something is really wrong here. Given the chronic lax criminal prosecutions in LA, I call on federal prosecutors to charge those who are citizens with attacks on federal officers or buildings, and those who are not citizens should be deported immediately. One of my favorite reporters these days is Tyler O'Neill at the Daily Signal. He had a great article on the source of the mayhem in Los Angeles. His article identified 3 plotters behind this destructive rioting: the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights Los Angeles, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. Especially disturbing is that this anti-American operation, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, has received millions in government funding from the Biden-Harris administration. Their aim supposedly is to monitor but counter ICE activity. Why would the federal government give money to an organization that opposes the federal government's agencies? The O'Neill article notes that they deny involvement in the LA riots. Government funding has got to stop now. I know that David Huerta, president of the SEIU's California chapter, was arrested for interfering with an ICE vehicle. The interesting thing is that the heads of these unions still act like morons, while rank and file union members have begun to support Trump in record numbers. An argument is made that the unions, especially ones like the SEIU with a lot of low-paid jobs, hope to add illegals to their membership. However, I believe that many sensible union members regard the illegals as taking their jobs and driving down ambient wages. Let's see how this sorts out, folks. Adding to the misery are professional scumballs that are looting stores, including an Adidas and an Apple store in the immediate area of the rioting. I'm not sure how robbing small businesses would in any way help anyone's larger cause. Further, such damage increases already high insurance costs for Californians. And in fact, many insurance companies have been fleeing California, getting tough out there, folks. And they've gotten it by voting for people like Newsom and Bass. In the meantime, I again remind the Dems in my audience of the riots at the Democrat Presidential Convention in Chicago in 1968. I believe that the riots cost Hubert Humphrey the election over an unpopular Richard Nixon. Violence and anti-American chants are not going to win the vote of the majority of Americans. Here's the right way to do it. Texas Governor Abbott did this in advance of protests scheduled for San Antonio. The state of Texas stands ready to deploy all necessary personnel and resources to uphold law and order across our state. Texas National Guard soldiers are on standby in areas where mass demonstrations are planned in case they are needed. Peaceful protests are part of the fabric of our nation, but Texas will not tolerate the lawlessness we have seen in Los Angeles. Anyone engaging in acts of violence or damaging property will be swiftly held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. So, unlike Los Angeles, local authorities are working with state and federal officials to control potential violence. This is how Americans should react. Nobody forget this when the California failures try to run for president in a few years. The biggest political scandal in 50 years. Yes, I'm talking about Biden's visible incompetence for at least his last 2 years in office. Hey, this guy couldn't find his way off a stage. The Secret Service had him go in and out of Air Force One's back door since he could not safely navigate the taller stairs at the front of the plane. I lived through Watergate, Clinton Gate, and Russiagate, and I assure you that as this progresses, that this will be the worst scandal so far. A featured part of the scandal is the use of the auto pen. Apparently, many recent presidents have used them. That is not the scandal. However, it has been disclosed that Biden had 3 different auto pen signatures. That part apparently is unusual. The critical issue is that demented and stupid Biden could not have been making the presidential decisions to sign documents, bills, and more recently, a rash of pardons. I found it humorous that a recent statement purportedly from Biden was perfect, of course, as the person pretending to be Biden claimed that he made the decisions on everything. Balderdash! So let's start by arresting the fraudster who issued that bogus statement claiming to be Biden in a comprehensive and coherent sense. Then start up the ladder. Many conservatives are tired of the unequal justice system. During the Biden-Harris disaster, Trump and many of his associates were the victims of lawfare for bogus claims, including several who ended up in jail. Turnabout is fair play. This time, the reasonable members of the public want to see rapid prosecutions and real jail time. There's been no doubt of Biden's incompetence since the Hur report. That's H-U-R. Now, the liars in the slopstream media and formerly in the administration are rushing to get their tell-all books out. Well, you know what? Some of this tell-all stuff is also known as confessions. Since disclosed without a plea deal, these should be used as evidence at trials. I'm referring to the book Original Sin, where a couple of the cover-up artists are now trying to salvage themselves. The whack job spokesperson for Biden also has a book coming out. Let's boycott the book and see if she'll be in prison orange with her colleagues or turn state's evidence. Books after the fact are not going to work to get them off the hook. Think about it. If Biden was not competent to operate the auto pen, none of his late-term pardons are valid. Time to round those folks up. If they were in prison, return them to prison. If they were not already in prison, try them, and if convicted, get them into prison. Let's put Hunter Biden at the top of that list, among others. I have repeatedly called for the results of investigations to how this loser Biden ended up with millions of dollars in 3 houses. How is Hunter getting these huge contracts with foreign companies? I expect that these unearned gains were due to selling influence. If established, all of the proceeds should be seized and used by the feds toward the national debt. I'm calling for the ringleaders to get life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. I want the enablers to get 10 to 20 years in the pen. This is a disgrace of international proportions. While a deal with the CCP has been announced, I have zero confidence that the CCP will cut off illegal fentanyl supplies to the cartels in Mexico, or will allow more U.S. goods into China. Part of the deal is that the CCP was holding rare earth minerals hostage. Reportedly, the U.S. has plenty of rare earth minerals. Let's go get them and cut off China completely until the people of China rise up and dump the CCP. The U.S. supposedly made a rare earth deal with Ukraine. While waiting to develop our own supplies, get them from Ukraine, and at the same time help them repel the deranged attacks from Putin. Why is the U.S. holding back on critical military supplies to Ukraine? I am clear on this. Support Ukraine. How dangerous is the CCP? A third scientist on the way to the University of Michigan has been stopped at the Detroit airport for sending over illegal biological materials in advance of her visit. This is like a TV drama or a movie, except this is a real thing, folks. So just like the failed negotiations with the terrorists in Iran, nice to say you try to talk it out, but don't trust them. As Reagan said, trust but verify. Musk versus Trump, endless rhetoric. The LA riots pushed the feud between the two off the front page. Of course, it should never have been made public. I charge both men with failing to behave like adults. I believe both major political parties have grossly failed America, and both of my books document that fact in detail. However, Musk's threat to start another political party was poorly timed, and I do not take him seriously. On the other side, Trump threatened U.S. contracts with Musk companies, which would include SpaceX. As far as I know, America is dependent on SpaceX, especially in light of the recent failures by Boeing. So this would not be a smart thing for Trump to do. The latest is that Musk has publicly said he went too far in some of his statements criticizing Trump. Enough said on that one. Paying college athletes, ridiculous. I stopped watching pro sports years ago. I have an outstanding law review article calling for all sports teams to lose their antitrust exemptions and for the public to stop funding stadiums for billionaires. It's just about money and gambling. The idea of a home team is just one stadium and one billionaire away. Division I college athletics are a corrupt mess. These athletes get free tuition, free room and board, and an opportunity to get into the pros. What more do they want? Well, now, due to resolution of a lawsuit with a $2.7 billion price tag, they will get paid. The NCAA Division I schools will be able to pay players directly up to a salary cap of $20.5 million. That is per school, folks. The settlement is to pay players from the last few years who did not already get paid. I'm outraged, and I call on my colleagues to boycott all college sports that pay players and to stop all contributions to those schools until sensibility returns. This is sick. On the same track, the University of Houston, a public university serving the greater Houston community, is paying its football coach and its basketball coach each at least $4 million each year for the upcoming 4 years. Where is the investment in education, the faculty, the students? This has to end somewhere. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at thebrushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.